All right, so diaphragm fuel pumps. That was number 3, diaphragm. Diaphragm fuel pumps. This is what's used on Lycoming. You don't use these on Continental. So Lycoming uses them. Continental uses a rotary vane. So they are extremely common. In GA, General Aviation. They are classified as what type of pump?
Variable.
He called them variable displacement.
Thank you.
Variable displacement pump. It is engine driven. But what?
Spring driven. It's actually spring.
Consider it a spring operated pump. Because the engine only resets the spring. Engine only resets the spring. Oh, as needed, actually. As needed. If you have the thing in idle cutoff, no fuel is flowing. So if I were flying, the prop's going to be windmilling, pull it to idle cutoff. Prop still windmills, which means the gear train still goes, which means everything in the back is still doing, and the spring is, or the arm is still going up and down, but spring is up. Components.
I don't really understand how that works. Why is the spring up? We can't leave on.
So if you're not actually using fuel, right? So that arm comes up, grabs the spring, lifts it up, lifts the diaphragm. Diaphragm takes in a load of fuel, and then you pull it idle cutoff. Now no fuel goes out, so diaphragm's up and full of fuel, and the spring's trying to push it. It's got nowhere to go.
Because it's.
Because I put it in idle cutoff.
Yeah.
So if you kept windmilling the prop, it would.
Okay.
Let me see. How many check valves do I have?
2.
Okay. Uses 2 check valves. One allows fuel in. One allows fuel out. We have how many diaphragms?
3.
We have 3. What are the 3 diaphragms?
Main diaphragm, backup.
Okay, we got
compensating diaphragm.
main, an upper, and the pulsator. Pulsator diaphragm. What's that?
I want to know how that pulse diaphragm works. I don't get it.
Oh, you want to know how it works? Okay. So it's just a piece of rubber on the bottom.
Below both diaphragms?
Below both diaphragms.
So it's like pulls in, this expands, pushes in.
There we go.
pushes in.
So it's right down here, right there,
Oh, below the outlet.
below the outlet, right there, right there. So there's just a little bit of space,
That's pressure relief.
and there's a little bit of airspace below it in a little cap.
Okay.
So as the spring pushes down on the upper diaphragms and it forces, we'll say, fuel down and out of here, it creates pressure on this diaphragm so it stretches a little bit. And then when all of this up top gets cocked, then this pushes up a little bit and relieves some of the pulsations that come out of it. So while this goes to 0, then this comes up a little bit and kind of keeps a little pressure going that way.
Dampens it.
Huh? Dampens it. Here.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
They should have called it a damper diaphragm. That sounds even better. Pulsator. All right, so we have the main, the upper, which the upper one is a backup, right? That's your backup. What happens if the main has a total blowout?
The backup still works?
Backup still works. What's our indication?
Yeah,
Overboard drain. Three. What's next? We have the heavy spring. And, well, the heavy spring does all the work, basically. Does the work. Provides the pressure, the flow, however you want to look at it. And then we have the arm driven on a cam. And push rod. Push rod, or I think you call it a plunger. Plunger. All right, so those are our major parts. I got our operation. Let me see. As the cam, what's the cam attached to?
Idler gear.
Idler gear and plunger. Press arm down. Spring is compressed. And diaphragm is lifted up. What happens now? Diaphragm's lifted up. Okay, fuel is drawn in. This draws in fuel. This draws in fuel. I don't want to say that. Through the inlet check valve. Through the inlet check valve. Let me see. Then what?
Then the spring fights back.
Okay. And the spring does what?
Pushes back.
Pushes back. Okay. So if there is a demand, spring presses down. Well, spring's pressing down no matter what. So better said, spring presses down, and if there is a demand, spring presses down on diaphragm. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just cross that right there. Spring presses down on diaphragm. And if there is a demand, fuel is pushed out. Outlet check valve. If there is no demand, there is no demand, then what?
Spring stays loaded.
Okay, spring stays loaded or spring remains compressed. Spring remains compressed. Diaphragm remains up. Remains up. And no fuel is pumped out.
So that spring, by there being more pressure after the pump, the spring will be more compressed. So if there's more pressure, the spring is more compressed.
No, that didn't sound
Work
right.
at all?
No, it didn't sound right. So the spring is,
I mean, I get it how it works, but I'm just trying to think about how I can't.
Okay. We have the upper diaphragm. Upper diaphragm, what's its purpose?
Be a backup.
What?
Be a backup to
Be a backup, okay. Keeps any fuel that leaks from main diaphragm, from leaking into crankcase. Keeps any fuel that leaks from main diaphragm from leaking into crankcase. Why is that a problem? Oil dilution, explosion hazard.
Run a little lean.
Lead deposit.
Acts as a backup.
Lean out your fuel here.
We have the pulsator diaphragm. Evens out. It evens out. Evens out. Fuel pressure. Pulsations to prevent excessive wear. On the servo. What's a servo?
Carburetor.
carburetor arm.
Think about it as a carburetor. And last thing I'll write before break is the drain fitting. What is a drain fitting for?
To send excess fuel or lower, or leak fuel.
To indicate that you have
Yeah.
a bad lower.
Used to indicate a leaky main diaphragm. Used to indicate a leaky main diaphragm. What do you do if you have a leaky main diaphragm?
Change the pump.
Put a new pump in.
Call Ted Henderson.
Call Tim.
Ted, damn it.
Tim.
Yeah,